I'm Masha Jafari and I'll be presenting Korean government. Now, Korean government is one of a kind in the world. It consists of an American type of democratic government where it has the president, and then it has the people vote for those who are in power. But it's parliamentary in a way that they have a prime minister and it's also unicameral. And we'll go over all of those and throughout the presentation. So the current president is Lee Myung-bak, and that's him right there. The current election. It's very important because it was the first time in 10 years that the Grand National Party has come back into power. And now going into specifics as to what does the president actually do. Well, first of all, he serves only for one term, and it's only for 5 years, and he cannot be re-elected. Now, compared to America's 4 years and 2 terms, in a way, it's better because what if you don't like the president? And you would somehow feel better that he'll be out of power in 5 years. And in a state of emergency, whatever laws he wants to make, he has to go through the National Assembly. And if the National Assembly isn't in session, and if it's just not in session, then by law he has to make the minimum necessary in order to protect the country, because usually some presidents, they might take the absenceness of the National Assembly in order to make way for like a tyranny, in a way, to try and make laws that go against the Constitution, that go against the country's fundamentals. And he may also declare martial law during war times, meaning that the military will take over the judicial system. Now, after the president comes the prime minister, and if the president dies, the prime minister would take over his place, similar to how in America, if like the president is incapable of doing his job, or if he dies by an assassination or a natural death, the vice president would naturally take over. And the current vice president is Han Sung-soo, and that's him speaking. He assists the president in various things. He also appoints the ministers, such as the Minister of Health, Science, Education, and yes, and he's the next in line for office. Now down to the National Assembly. My previous presentation, people were wondering how is the National Assembly chosen? Well, it's 75% of the National Assembly. It's mainly proportional, meaning that the remaining 25% you're appointed in, but the 75% it's based on the amount of seats that a party gets during an election. So, for example, in this current election, when the Grand National Party got back into power, I mean that they got the majority of the seats inside the National Assembly. So right now they have 170 seats, which makes up 58%. And next in line comes the Democratic Party, which has 83 seats, which makes up 28%. So they wanted to make the National Assembly somewhat proportional because they don't want one party to have the most power, because naturally if the president wanted to make a law and if the other party didn't really agree with it, it wouldn't really matter because one party would have the sole control. So they want to make it proportional so that everybody has a chance to voice their opinion and to veto or allow a law to move through. It has to be greater than or equal to 200 members, and it's never been less, it's always been more since it has begun. And they are elected every 4 years. And they remove people in office. So, for example, if they disapprove of the prime minister, they will tell the president, and they can remove him if by a vote, of course, not just if one person didn't like him. they would take him out by a majority. And they can inspect and investigate state affairs. So if they felt that there was corruption going on, they have the right to investigate it. And it's unicameral. And unicameral means that there's only one legislative branch. So in America, we're bicameral. So we have the House of Representatives and we have the Senate. So if you want to think about it, unicameral is somewhat of an easier process because you only have to go through one house to get the vote passed. But in America, it usually takes a really long time to have a bill passed because it has to go through the House and then it has to go through the Senate, and there's a bunch of speeches, and like the next thing you know, it takes months for the bill to pass. And lastly, it's the judicial system. There are a lot of courts, but the main two that I'm going to focus on is the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court. So the Supreme Court consists of 14 justices and one Supreme Court, and one Chief Justice. The Chief Justice is appointed by the President, but then again the National Assembly has to approve of him. And the 14 justices are recommended by the Chief Justice, and then the President sees the list, and then he chooses who he likes, and then he goes to the National Assembly, and he says, here are the people that I like, and they will vote and see that, and the National Assembly would vote on him on the list and say who they approve of to serve as a judge. And what the Supreme Court does is that it deals with appeals against other courts. So if a person has a problem with the decision in another court, they would go and bring it up to the highest court to make a final decision. And it has final decisions on court materials and cases from presidential and the parliament elections. So basically, if there was a problem in the last election, which dealt with Lee Myung-bak, if there was a problem with how he was chosen, it would go to the Supreme Court and they would decide that they would look at it. Next in line is the Constitutional Court. Well, that consists of 9 justices, and it's proportional in the way that they are chosen, meaning that the first 3 are chosen by the President, the second 3 are chosen by the Chief Justice, and the third 3 are chosen by the National Assembly. So you have a variety of different ideals, different philosophies, different ways of thinking in the Constitutional Court. Because remember, the Constitution, everybody interprets it in a different way, and you want to have people who have different interpretations to be a judge, meaning that you don't want a strict conservative way to be a judge. And they deal with the constitutionality of the law. Now, in current events, this is, well, when Condoleezza Rice was Secretary of State, she asked South Korea to make more proactive sanctions against North Korea. South Korea refused, and I find that really shocking because, to my knowledge, many countries, whenever America tells them something, they naturally do it because it's the biggest world power. But South Korea said no, and that shows that they hang on to their values, and they become so independent since they first started. They have grown so much, and now that shows that they have their power, and they have power, and they stick to what they believe in, and they don't submit to bigger powers.